All right, so are you ready for this? We're diving into the sometimes murky world of anonymous blogging today.
Sounds intriguing.
We're looking at a Substack post
Okay.
called Why I'm Homeless Now, Worst Boyfriend Ever.
Wow. That's quite a title.
It really is, and it kind of lives up to the hype. But
Yeah.
there's this twist at the end that I think you'll find interesting.
Right. I'm hooked already.
This post, it's like a confession,
Hmm.
like a really raw outpouring of all this guy's,
Okay.
problems.
Yeah.
He talks about infidelity,
Mm.
addictions, like the whole implosion of his life, basically.
Wow.
And then right at the end, he just drops in this line.
Oh.
Like, it's nothing. All above is fictional BT.
Oh, wow.
So are we dealing with someone who's just like a master manipulator? Or is this like a genuine cry for help? But
Yeah.
he's masking it as fiction.
It's so hard to tell, like, what's the motivation behind that? What do you think?
Right. It's like,
Yeah.
is he trying to protect himself or is he trying to, just be a troll?
Exactly.
It's hard to say.
Yeah, it really makes you question not just the story itself,
Right.
but also like the psychology of the author. Like
Yeah.
why share such personal and potentially damaging experiences?
Yeah.
Even if it's disguised as fiction.
Yeah. So let's unpack this story a little bit.
Okay.
He starts by describing his early life and relationships. And he talks about, always feeling like he's on the outside of whatever group he's trying to be in.
Yeah.
He mentions his long-term girlfriend, Natalie Thompson.
Hmm.
He says she's kind of
Okay.
beautiful, but then he kind of admits that he chose her strategically
Oh.
because she fit into his social circle and he thought she would enhance his status.
It's like he's viewing her as a trophy rather than a partner.
Right.
Right.
It's like she's an accessory.
Yeah, and that lack of
Yeah.
genuine emotional connection, I think that could be a clue
Yeah.
as to why he was so susceptible to infidelity
Yeah.
later on. Like choosing a partner based on those external factors
Uh-huh.
rather than a true connection.
Right.
I think it can be a sign of someone who's seeking external validation
Yeah.
to kind of mask their own insecurities.
Totally. And then you think about the pressure to present a certain image in his social circle.
Absolutely.
And then he goes on to talk about these urges he felt to cheat even early on in the relationship.
Yeah.
He would go to boba shops.
Okay.
And not just for the drinks.
Uh-huh.
He was drawn to what he calls the cute young Asian girls there. And he said they fueled his writing.
That's interesting. It makes you think about the nature of his attraction.
Yeah.
He mentions having a lifelong fetish for Asian women.
Uh-huh.
And so that's adding like another layer
Right.
to his motivations for infidelity.
Right. It's not
It's not just seeking new sexual experiences,
Yeah,
but there's a specific type that he's drawn to.
exactly.
And that could indicate, deeper psychological factors at play.
Yeah, it's like there's something more driving his behavior than just like the novelty of it.
Yeah.
And it's clear he's struggling with other issues too.
Oh, yeah.
He mentions being addicted to Adderall.
Wow.
He says he hates his job. He feels this constant need to please people.
Mm.
And it seems like writing becomes his escape.
Okay.
It's a way to process these urges and these darker impulses.
Absolutely. And the fact that he couldn't share this writing openly.
Yeah.
Especially with Natalie. That created this really dangerous cycle.
Yeah.
He was living a double life.
Yeah.
One with her and then one in his writing.
Right.
Where he could be totally honest no matter
Exactly.
how shocking or inappropriate.
He describes turning 25 and having what he calls an existential crisis.
Okay.
You know that feeling of questioning your whole purpose
Yeah.
in the world?
I think we've all been there
Oh, yeah, for
at
sure.
some point.
Yeah. So he starts sharing his writing on Substack. Okay.
But under his real name.
Uh-huh.
But he's holding back from being truly honest.
So he's battling that internal conflict between authenticity
Right.
and that fear of judgment.
Totally.
He wants to be seen as this great writer,
Mhm.
but he's terrified of what people will think,
Yeah. Especially the people.
especially those in his close circle.
It's his life. Yeah.
If they knew what he was really thinking and doing.
He's trapped in this loop of infidelity.
Yeah.
And he says it's fueled by this desire for what he calls juicy material
Right.
for his writing.
Mm-hmm.
He's convinced himself that to be a good writer, he needs to live this like wild, reckless life.
Which is such a dangerous rationalization.
It is.
It leads him down this path of
Yep.
increasingly risky behavior.
Right.
From prostitutes,
Yeah, he talked about
massage parlors,
massage parlors. Yeah.
to casual hookups through dating apps.
Yeah.
He's chasing these experiences for his writing.
Right.
But it's clearly taking a toll on him. Yeah.
Mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, and he even admits that.
It aligns with what some experts call sex addiction.
Okay.
Or compulsive sexual behavior.
Right.
It's characterized by, this inability to control sexual urges and thoughts despite the negative consequences.
Right.
And in the blog post, we see potential signs of this.
Yeah.
It's like his inability to stay faithful, even though he seemingly cares for Natalie, the escalating risky behavior, the negative impact it has on his life.
Right.
So, it's important to note this is just speculation based on his account.
Right.
A formal diagnosis would require professional evaluation.
Yeah, that's really helpful for understanding the gravity of what he might be dealing with.
Yeah.
He also mentions feeling inadequate and using these like derogatory terms when he's stressed.
Yeah.
This combined with his need to please others,
Right.
it could point to like deep-seated insecurities,
Absolutely.
lack of self-worth.
He might be using sex as a way to validate himself.
Yeah.
To feel desired and powerful.
He even talks about moving in with Natalie.
Okay.
To try and curb his masturbation addiction.
How?
And then feeling disturbed by the thought of her masturbating in his absence.
Okay.
It seems like he wants to control her sexuality, even though he can't even control his own urges.
This possessiveness, coupled with his infidelity, it points to like a distorted view of relationships, deep-seated insecurities.
Yeah.
He's trying to fill a void within himself by controlling others.
Right.
But it just leads to more pain and isolation.
It's like he's trying to create this image of a perfect relationship to the outside world, but behind closed doors, it's totally different.
Exactly.
And it seems like writing plays a significant role in this.
Absolutely.
He emphasizes how important writing is to him.
Yeah.
How it's his primary form of self-expression and therapy. He even says writing is thinking, implying that by putting his experiences into words, he's trying to make sense of them.
Right.
But it's also clear that writing becomes intertwined with his infidelity. He's not just writing about his experiences.
Yeah.
He's seeking out new experiences specifically to have something to write about.
So like he's caught in this feedback loop.
Yeah.
Where the writing justifies the behavior.
Yeah.
And then the behavior fuels the writing.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a chicken and egg situation.
Exactly.
It makes you think about the ethics of it all.
It does. It raises the question of, using real life experiences, especially, experiences that involve other people.
Especially when you're putting them in a negative light.
As fodder for creative writing.
Yeah.
Even if he's claiming it's fiction.
Right.
There's still that potential
for harm.
Both to himself and to those that he writes about.
He does talk about anonymizing his stories.
Right.
But it's clear he's operating within a specific social circle, so it wouldn't be hard to, figure out who he's talking about.
For someone who knows him to piece together who he is.
Especially in the age of the internet.
Exactly.
It's a risky game.
Yeah, it's a risky game.
He's playing.
He's playing for sure.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of layers to unpack here.
There are. Yeah. It's almost like he wants the recognition and the freedom of expression, but he's not willing to
face the consequences.
Face those consequences.
What are your thoughts on that?
It reminds me of this whole phenomenon of confessional culture in the digital age. We have social media platforms where people are sharing like every little detail of their lives.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Podcasts dedicated to revealing secrets.
Right.
Online communities that are
built around this idea of anonymity and vulnerability.
So you're saying it's not just him.
Yeah.
There's like a cultural shift towards this oversharing.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
It's a complex thing.
Yeah.
There's an element of wanting to be heard.
Right.
Wanting to connect with others who might relate. But there's also a potential therapeutic element to it.
Right.
By externalizing these thoughts and feelings. Even in a fictionalized form, he might be trying to process, his own guilt, his shame, his confusion.
He does talk about journaling obsessively.
Right.
And how writing is thinking for him.
Yeah.
It's like the act of writing itself is a way for him to make sense of all the chaos in his life.
Right. And that's where the line between truth and fiction gets even blurrier.
Yeah. Is it really fiction?
Yeah.
If he's using writing as a form of therapy?
Or is it a blend of lived experience?
Yeah.
and creative embellishment, shaped by his need to both express himself and protect himself.
Yeah, and maybe it's both.
Maybe it is.
It's almost like he's using fiction as a shield,
Oh,
so he can explore these like dark taboo subjects without having to fully own them. He can kind of reap the benefits of sharing all this scandalous content.
Yeah.
But he maintains that plausible deniability.
I wonder if his readers are aware of this this game that he's playing.
Do you think they care if it's real or not?
Right.
He does mention that some readers assume the stories are fictional.
Okay.
And it doesn't seem to bother them. In fact, they kind of like it even more.
It's like a game.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what's real and what's not.
What's exaggerated, what's made up.
Right. It really highlights how storytelling has always been about playing with the truth.
Right.
Even in traditional forms like novels, memoirs, there's an element of crafting a narrative.
Yeah.
Selecting details, shaping the reader's perception. But the digital age adds this whole other layer of complexity with
anonymity.
And
virality.
Right, because things can spread so quickly.
Yeah, it's like we're all craving this authenticity, but we're also kind of wary of its consequences.
We want the raw, unfiltered truth.
Right.
But also want that comfort of knowing that it's not entirely real.
It's like we can't decide what we want.
Exactly. And that tension.
Yeah.
That push and pull between revelation and concealment.
Yeah.
That's what makes this blog post so interesting.
It does.
It really forces us to confront our own assumptions about truth, about storytelling, and about the ethics of sharing our lives online.
Okay, so we've talked about his psychology in the broader cultural context, but let's zoom in on some specific details.
All right.
There's this recurring theme of him feeling like an outsider, even within his own social circle.
Yeah.
He says he's good at their game.
Okay.
He has status, but there's this underlying feeling of not belonging.
Yeah, like he's not fully accepted.
Yeah.
This feeling of being an outsider.
Yeah.
It's common in stories of infidelity and addiction.
Right.
Yeah. It creates this sense of loneliness and isolation.
Yeah.
Even when you're surrounded by people.
Yeah, it's like he's yearning. For a connection he can't find in his current relationships.
And that yearning drives him to seek it elsewhere often.
In destructive ways.
In these destructive ways.
And could it be that his choice of Natalie as a girlfriend ties into this? It's like he's trying to fit in, to gain acceptance by being with someone who represents, everything that his social circle values.
That's a really insightful observation. It makes you wonder if his infidelity is, in part, a rebellion against that very social structure he's trying to be a part of.
Yeah, he's trying to play the game, but also kind of like reject it at the same time.
Exactly.
He also mentions struggling with what sounds like a porn addiction and this fear of being exposed or ruined if Natalie ever found out about his infidelity.
Right.
He goes to extreme lengths to conceal his actions.
Yeah.
Deleting social media accounts, anonymizing his writing.
That paranoia and fear of exposure.
Yeah.
Those are common signs of addiction.
Okay.
It's like he's living in this constant state of anxiety.
Right.
Always afraid of being caught.
And having to face the consequences.
Yeah. It takes a lot of energy to maintain that level of secrecy.
Right.
And it can really wear someone down.
And yet he keeps pushing the boundaries.
He keeps pushing those boundaries.
Yeah.
Escalating his behavior.
It's like he's both terrified of getting caught.
Yeah.
But also drawn to the thrill of the risk. He describes his infidelity as exciting and fun.
Right.
Even though it's clearly...
Despite the obvious harm.
Hurting people.
It's causing... It's that complex interplay of fear and guilt, excitement, and that need for validation.
Right.
That really fuels the addictive cycle.
Right.
He's looking for an escape.
Yeah.
Not just from his life, but from himself.
Right.
From the parts of him he doesn't understand or accept.
I'm curious about his relationship with Natalie.
Okay.
He describes her as kind, smart, beautiful, but he also admits to choosing her strategically because of her social status.
That lack of genuine emotional connection.
Yeah.
That sense of objectifying her as a trophy rather than a partner.
Yeah.
That's really telling.
Yeah.
It suggests that he might be incapable of, or at least afraid of, real intimacy, he might be subconsciously sabotaging the relationship. Yeah. Because true intimacy is just too threatening at him.
Which could explain why he's engaging in these risky behaviors, despite the risk of losing her.
Right. He's almost creating a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly.
It's a way to avoid the vulnerability and the emotional risk that comes with true intimacy.
So there's a lot to unpack in this blog post.
A lot.
And we're only scratching the surface.
We are.
So it's like he's living this double life, you know, online and offline. He's carefully crafting this persona of worst boyfriend ever for his readers.
Right.
But then he's also trying to maintain this facade of normalcy in his real life.
Right. Like, how much of his online persona is a reflection of who he really is versus just a performance?
It's a question we all face.
It is.
In this age of social media, you know, and online self-presentation.
How much of what we share is genuine?
Yeah.
How much is curated for public consumption?
Are we performing for an audience, or are we truly expressing ourselves?
It's like we're all playing a role to some extent.
Yeah, for sure. He even mentions being inspired by people like Kanye West and Elon Musk.
Okay.
You know, people known for their, like, bold, often controversial actions and statements. It's like he's trying to emulate their fearlessness, but he's also kind of missing the point.
What's interesting is that both Kanye and Elon, despite their public personas, they are ultimately driven by a deep belief in their own vision. They're not afraid to challenge conventions or break the rules because they genuinely believe that they're creating something new and valuable.
Whereas our anonymous blogger seems more driven by a need for validation, attention, even if it's negative.
Yeah, it's like he's trying to shock people into recognizing his talent. But he's going about it in a way that's self-destructive.
He's confusing notoriety with genuine accomplishment. He's mistaking pushing boundaries for creating something meaningful.
There's a difference between being provocative just for the sake of it and having a truly unique vision.
And that's where that final line of his blog post comes in. All above is fictional BTW.
It's like he's trying to have it both ways.
He wants the attention.
He wants the attention, the accolades, but he also wants to distance himself
from the consequences.
Is
that a common strategy?
I think it is.
For people sharing these stories online?
I think it's a way of navigating the complexities
of online self-presentation. It's like you can maintain a sense of control. Even when your life feels out of control.
Exactly.
Like calling it fiction.
Yeah.
You can kind of claim creative license.
Right, and avoid taking full responsibility.
Yeah. It's also a way of manipulating the reader.
It is.
Right.
It creates this sense of doubt. Uncertainty. You know.
What's real, what's not.
What are we supposed to believe?
Yeah.
You know.
It's a clever literary device.
It is.
But it also feels kind of manipulative and dishonest. Yeah.
He's daring us to, you know, call him out, expose him.
Right.
But he's already created that safety net by claiming it's all fiction.
What do we make of this whole van life thing? You know, he portrays it as this grand escape, this symbol of freedom, a fresh start. But isn't there something ironic?
There is.
About choosing to live in such a confined space.
The van is fascinating.
Yeah.
It represents both a literal and metaphorical journey.
Okay.
It's his escape route, literally.
Right.
But it also symbolizes this internal journey of self-discovery.
He's confronting his demons.
He is.
But he's doing it in isolation.
Right.
Cut off from his support system.
He's physically free.
Yeah.
But he's still carrying all that baggage.
Yeah, it's like you can't outrun your problems.
You can't.
Just by changing your location.
Exactly.
He even describes encountering this angel named Mike.
Oh.
A handyman who helps him convert the van into a living space. It's like he's seeking guidance, you know, a father figure to help him make sense of it all.
But even with Mike's help, the van remains this symbol of isolation.
Right.
You know, he's alone on the road, facing his demons.
Without that support.
Without the support of friends or family.
Right, and it makes you wonder.
It does.
If he's just going to repeat these same patterns of behavior.
Right, even in this new environment. It's a classic case of wherever you go, there you are.
True change has to come from within.
It does.
It's like he's searching for an authentic self, but he keeps getting lost.
It does.
In the performance,
Wow.
the blog, the infidelity, the van life.
Yeah.
It all becomes part of this worst boyfriend ever persona.
Right.
That both hides and reveals who he truly is.
He's seeking validation from the outside world.
Yeah.
While running away from the internal work.
That needs to be done.
It needs to be done.
And something we can all relate to.
It is.
On some
level.
To some extent.
We all struggle with authenticity and self-presentation.
Especially in this digital age. Yeah, this blog post just takes it to an extreme.
It does.
It's a cautionary tale for sure.
It is.
It reminds us to be mindful of the personas we create.
Right.
Both online and offline.
Yeah.
And to make sure those personas align with our values and who we want to be.
In the world.
It's a reminder that true freedom comes from within.
Right.
And that running away from our problems rarely leads to lasting solutions.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful.
It has.
It's highlighted the complexities of online storytelling.
Yeah.
The blurred lines between truth and fiction.
Absolutely.
The deep-seated psychological motivations that drive our behavior.
This blog post, for all its messiness and contradictions, holds up a mirror to our own struggles.
With authenticity.
Authenticity, validation, the choices we make when we're faced with our inner demons.
It's a reminder that the human psyche is vast.
It is.
And often uncharted territory.
Absolutely.
And even in the age of oversharing, some truths remain hidden.
They do.
Even from ourselves. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope you found it as thought-provoking as we did. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the complexities of the human experience.
Absolutely.